This is Awesome John 22, and you know what? I thought after my last video, where I mentioned that I had a bunch of my figures temporarily packed up, might as well bust a few of them out. And what do you know, I found the next guy I wanted to do right there, right on top of everything else. I'm like, you know what? I've got some time. I am trying to get back in the habit of doing these videos. I might as well take the time to make another one. And I know these are pretty simplistic videos right now. I plan to do more with them later on once I've gotten used to just making them in general, so bear with me. And I promised I would do, I promised in my last video, my RID RC video, to do everybody's favorite, trader next. The famous Decepticon Starscream, who always given Megatron some shit. Excuse the language. You can see him here. This is first edition Prime Starscream. You can see some really good detail on him in the cockpit. Nice foam rubber nose. Not really foam rubber, I don't know, soft rubber, I guess. Soft rubbery plastic, I think is what it's coming to be called. Really good rivets. Good rivet details in the wings. He has these missiles on the sides of him, or the underside of him, that are also this really soft rubbery plastic. That annoys me to no end, because that means they're a little misshapen. You can kind of see what I'm talking about. And that's how they were right out of the box. Annoying. Some good molded detail under there. I don't really know what that's for, though, honestly. And as you can see, with every other plane transformer in the last bajillion years, he has all this undercarriage stuff. I think the only ones that didn't were, I think the original G1 Seekers did a pretty good job of not having it. The classic Seekers also did a pretty good job of not having it. And you can see that right there is Starscream's robot mode chest. It's just very clearly visible right there on the front of the plane, well, the top of the plane. I need to start, getting these areas of the plane straight when I'm making videos. Areas of stuff, I keep getting them mixed up. But yeah, anyway, he's got a thruster in the back. We're sitting right there above his robot mode feet, which you see him all closed up right there. Otherwise, the details are all there. He's a pretty good plane. He looks like he's kind of inspired by an old MiG or something. Very cool looking. Very nice silvery paint job with kind of this glossy gray-black everywhere else. And little bits of red strewn throughout to kind of harken back to the original Starscream. And for a size comparison with this guy, because he's very small, I want to illustrate just how small he is. This is a can of pop. He is just barely longer than that can of pop is tall. So, pretty small jet. Thank you, can of pop. We will be using you again later. But yeah, otherwise, very nice. Very compact. He's a very compact figure. And his transformation's pretty complicated. It actually gives me some trouble sometimes. And I've been playing with these things since like 1988. Yeah, you start out, remove his weapons from the underside of his wings, and you see they just kind of peg in there, using this kind of slot underneath, as you might expect. Take his wings, bring them down. They're on these really cool little angular hinges that allow them to move at this angle, which is, I like that a lot. Take his legs, which are tabbed in on the side of the ankle here. I'm going to pop them off like that. Bring them down. This whole section here moves down. Rotate it. Bring it up. You will see, if you look real close here, there are some tabs here and some holes there. Slot the tabs right in. You can see his waist there. So then you take this, you can see the seam here on the cockpit, rotate it around at that seam, hear it click into place. It's very nice, very satisfying click. Then you come here, bring these up on the back, and these are a little tricky. They are not the soft rubbery plastic, which these are not, which actually makes it a little harder for you to get a hold of them. Just flip that up in place, flip his heel and toes out, not that far. I always forget, they don't stop on their own. You have to position them manually, which is a little odd for a modern figure. But so that they're kind of even with these side spurs, I guess you'd call them. But yeah, and then set him down and then just kind of fiddle with it until you get them all so that they're flat. You have him standing up. You can see already much longer because we basically just doubled the length of the figure. Come up here, bring these back all the way, like so. You can see cockpit hanging off his butt. Take this, split it here, bring it down, rotate it, like so. Now you bring these, and they're on these sliding joints, and I'm going to try to show you here. You slide it down until it clicks. Do the same thing on the other side. There you go. Rotate it so that those sliding joints are actually facing forward. Flip out his hands. Flip back these, what were his like little stabilizers, so that they sit in the arm a little bit. You can clearly see where this is going. Bring this forward here, just a little bit. And come back here, bring this assembly back a little bit. You can see his head in here. Grab it, bring it up on this kind of rotational bitty thing here. Bring it all forward, while keep his torso kind of leaning forward. Bring the back up, and then bring the head down. The base of the head plugs in, like in this little slot here, you can kind of see. Now come back to the back, and this is actually really cool. Rotate his thruster around 180 degrees. Bring this part, it should come down, but it's not for me for some reason. Hold on a second. Well, here, go back up, bring this out, bring this down first. That was my mistake. Then bring it forward, plug the head back in. Not back in, plug it in for the first time, if you did it right, which I didn't. Acting like a total noob here. Split this. Splits very easily. You just put your fingernail up in it and it comes apart. Kind of sits like that. Bring this up and it plugs in. Then bring the thruster assembly down, and now he has a jetpack on his back. Very cool. I love that. I've gotten him all out of whack, so let's kind of fix him here. You can kind of have his head down a little, like he's being a schemer, and he's slouching forward, which I love that about it. And you can kind of, the way I like to pose him is I bring his arms back, and have him kind of pacing around, slouching, and with that scheming, he's got like a real scheming look on his face. But there he is, on full display, so to speak. And I'm going to bring in the pop can here. You can see he's now considerably taller than the pop can. My chair is creaky real bad. I need to get a new chair before I make another one of these. Considerably taller than the pop can. You can see, I want to point out real quick, he's got some blue detailing on him now. You can see it in his shoulders there, and on his arms, that also, like the red, harkens back to the G1 Soundwave, or Starscream. G1 Starscream. Wow, that was bad. Wow. I wish I knew something about video editing so I could edit that out, because that's a bit of a Freudian slip, I guess you would call it. Anyway, really cool looking. He looks a lot like his character model on Prime. For some reason the shoulders are a little higher than I'd like them to be. But yeah, there's only a few little bits of this figure that I could point out that are off model. First of all, the crest on his head, which you can clearly see is red on my figure, is usually just a gray rubbery plastic. I actually painted that in red using a permanent marker. Because it's red on the show, it's not on the figure. And as otherwise accurate as this guy is, I really wanted that to be accurate as well. Let me bring him back and kind of zoom in a little bit. Good Decepticon logo there. You can see that smirk on his face. I think his eyes... Yes, his eyes are actually painted over, so there is no light piping on him whatsoever. A little frustrating. Still see the rivets carry over very nicely from his vehicle mode. His legs are skinny. He's a scrawny guy in general, but his legs are really skinny. I don't like that. You can see kind of some hollow pieces there, but it's alright. And he does cheat a little bit. Like, there are many parts on this figure that are not parts of an airplane. He also is a little odd in that his weapons, which plug into his arms, kind of where his null rays would be on the original Starscream, are three missile clusters rather than single missiles like they are in the series. I guess because he doesn't really come with any other accessories, they wanted to give him something a little more impressive than a single missile. But anyway, here he is with RID RC. So I promised I'd use her as a size comparison. You can see she's very small, which is partially due to the fact that he's a little tall for a deluxe. He's not as tall as like Lockdown or somebody. I think it's Lockdown. It's the super tall one from Animated. Not quite as tall as him, but he really does increase in size quite a bit after his transformation. Here he is with RC in her Legends form as well, that I got simply because it's adorable. And with something that, you know, more people are bound to have, here he is with Classics Starscream, and you can see not quite as tall in comparison to Classic Starscream as to RID-RC, but as we all know, Classic Starscream is a little smallish himself. So Like with another deluxe, a larger deluxe, the size isn't quite as apparent, but yeah, he's still pretty tall, and especially with modern deluxes, with deluxe figures getting smaller and smaller, he's a pretty good size. And one thing I did not do with RC that I totally forgot, and it made me feel horrible, which is just, another reason why I'm probably going to go redo the RC review later. I did not touch on articulation at all whatsoever. So I'm going to do that now for Starscream. He's got these joints here that are from the sliding joint, as well as a good hinged elbow that bends about 90 degrees, you can see. His hands do rotate on a hinge for transformation purposes, but it works. He has the waist joint, which doesn't really do anything because it locks in here and it locks in here. It doesn't really, work at any other angle, but it's still there and it's still something. He composes wings however you want. His toes move, but if you move them, he can't really stand anymore. He bends a little bit more than 90 degrees at the leg, I think. Or either that or just about exactly 90 degrees. Rotates at the hip, though it's very tight, and if you try to rotate it without, trying to pop it a little bit first, his ball joint is going to pop up. Ball jointed here, but he doesn't go out very far. That actually disappointed me, because I kind of wanted, with such long legs, I wanted to kind of pose him kicking somebody, like side kicking somebody, and you can't really do that. But full range of motion up, he can move, kind of rotate it out at this weird angle, rotates back quite far, and his head, even though it's kind of sunken in, is on a very, very nice ball joint. You can get all kinds of movement from his head. It can't do a full 360 without raising it up first, because of how big his chin is and how low it sits on his body. But yeah, overall, this is a truly fantastic example of what Prime First Edition was, for as long as it actually lasted. I think I really like the Prime series, and I really like this guy on the Prime series. I think he's easily one of my favorite characters. And I think this rendition of him has just turned out to be a fantastic rendition of him. And yes, there is a Voyager class version of him coming out relatively soon, I would think, in the Prime RID line. Sorry. And it does look a little bit better in vehicle mode, and the pictures we've gotten of it, its robot mode doesn't look quite as good, but I think that's just a mistransformation. I'm not really sure, though, so don't quote me on it. Either way, though, if you have the money to pick up this guy, or if you can find him, or you know somebody from a region where they still have him who can get it to you cheap, go for this one over the RID version. He's in really good scale with RID Voyager Megatron. He's not in very good scale with First Edition Megatron from what I've seen. I don't actually own it. But First Edition Megatron is just smallish in general compared to other figures. So if you like scale, go with RID Megatron and this guy. They work really great together. That, and we've gotten a look at a Takara Tomy figure that is a repaint of him as Skywarp. If they're going to start doing that, I love the Seekers. I actually like repaints as different characters in general, because I think that way you can tell a lot about them right off the bat with their color scheme. And so therefore I love the Seekers. And if they're going to start making the Seekers out of this mold, not the Voyager version of the mold, but this one, and you are a fan of the Seekers, you need to get this guy to kind of head your Seeker collection once they start to come out with more of them. But yeah, otherwise, if you don't really mind that, if you don't have the money, or you don't care about collecting the other Seekers, or you don't care about collecting them all using the same mold, go for the RID version, because this guy, he's one of the cheaper first editions to get a hold of. He's probably only going to cost you $35, maybe max $40. And that's with shipping, hopefully, if you find him at the right place. If you can't find him for that low with shipping and everything, look some more. But even that's the Voyager class RID is going to come out at about $21 retail in the US, and it should be roughly the equivalent in corresponding areas. That's about half what you're going to pay for him online, for this guy online. So I mean, if it just doesn't matter much to you, do that. That's a pretty big difference in price there. And but I mean, just overall, great first edition figure, great figure in general, great Starscream, and I absolutely love him. And this is Awesome John 22 saying, I am not making any more videos tonight, but I will make some soon.